Ladies and gentlemen, Panel 10 entitled Pioneering Tomorrow, UAE's Blueprint for the Future will start now.
Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everyone. We want to start this session from Abu Dhabi Strategic Debate, the 11th session, with a dialogue with a young minister, one of the stars, creative and innovative. Wherever he is always shining. He is Mr. Minister Dr. ThaniAlZeyoudi, and as always for the UAE, always the UAE had the position in Abu Dhabi strategic debate. And as always, the UAE has a unique position in the dialogues and the discussions of this debate. I insisted on having this session, particularly when we found it very difficult to find the speakers from the UAE because of the busy agenda of Dr. Thani. He was keen on coming despite this busy agenda, and he's always overseas on travels, on trips. This session is an opportunity to explore the strategies and the plans of the UAE being ready for a different world that's rapidly changing. Dr. Thani, you returned a few days ago from Australia after signing an agreement with a partnership between Australia and the UAE, strategic partnership, and I think it is the first country in the Middle East to have such an agreement with the Australian side. Dr. Thani has a deep understanding for the crucial changes and fundamental changes that hit globalization and foreign trade in the last 2 decades. He is fully aware that the economic partnership scheme that is led by the UAE with countries in the region and outside and across the continents with ambition of the UAE, characterized by proactivity and pioneership in order to create a better future for the UAE. You know, the technology, advanced technology, AI, policies of innovation, and also the strategic investment, the food security, energy, sustainable energy. These are key themes and key pillars for prosperity. Let's start with my question for Dr. Zeyoudi to ask you directly about how do you see the achievements in the comprehensive economic partnership program, and whether this is a response to the rapid changes that hit the global economy and reformation of the economic blocks across the globe. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for the invitation, and I apologize for the delay as we were scheduled to start yesterday because I had an ad hoc trip, and with coordination, I could make it today for this conference, which is continuously being unique in order for the comprehensive economic program. So let's go 3 years back in time at the beginning of the project. What were the reasons that led us to start such a program at a time that is characterized by the economic wars, the impacts on supply chain, and also the impacts on the key sources of food supplies across the globe, and the changes at the political side, outside. And we see the 50 years for the UAE and the rapid growth that we witnessed, and the phases that and the milestones of this growth in the UAE. We started in 1975. It was 20 billion, and last year, maybe more than $450 billion. So it's about 24 folds of what we were 50 years ago. So there were milestones for this economy. So the first was the infrastructure investment, and we had continued investment in manpower, the UAE manpower, and attraction of talent acquisition. And then this move changed into the development of specialized free zones, specialized economic zones, and then the development that for the legislations and laws, and then the economy, the knowledge-based economy, which is the basis for the next phase. And it's completely relevant and related and based on technology. We have lots of geopolitical changes in the world and the impacts of COVID-19. So we reshuffled the cards and reshuffled the priorities based on this. And we see some economic blocks are still living with the same mentality they had like 15 or 20 years ago. Well, no, we know economic blocks are available all over the globe. Some of these are still following the traditional approach, and this will impact, of course, the outcomes. We see also the new axis of the development, which is East Asia. This is growing, and there are new alliances, new agreements, and the last one, the free trade agreement for East and Southern Asian countries. And we see these changes that are going through the world, and we are a little bit slow in the free trade agreements. The free trade agreements are just helping the countries to change a lot. And one of the countries that was Chile. Chile had a group of young people that they were looking for root changes in the economic change. We're not like Chile in 20 years ago. We're in a very good or excellent situation at the moment. So through 15 years, they could move Chile into a different stage, and they had the development for 5 or 6% per year. They could attract investment in a region that has lots of challenges, even to reach your embassy in there. The Chile is always remarkable in such agreements. We don't want to go to the traditional partners that are always unique and excellent in this, with Switzerland, Indonesia, Singapore. Of course, these are countries that had remarkable successes. In the last few years, we had 24 agreements 24 agreements in the last few years. Singapore and Switzerland have finished this in more than 20 years. So, of course, we have seen this now as the impact of this and the results. We have an increase in the investment and the attraction of investment in the country, also reduction of the impacts of the international change and the utilization of technology in local or national industry, and the integration with the other sectors. And the most important point we are going to see within the coming 2 years, we're going to change the growth is 1.5 to 2%. Maybe last year it was struggling. Here in the UAE, we are 12%. So when we're talking about figures here, of course, when we say something like this, you need to wait like 5 to 7 years to see the outcomes. But we're seeing this like every day. We're seeing this in a very short time. And another important point about the free trade agreement, the service sector. Always in the free trade, we're focusing on the goods sector, how to move goods and minimize the obstacles. But we talk about service sector. It's one of the key for success in the comprehensive agreement, comprehensive economic agreement. We see U.S., China, and European countries, they started to shift their economic scheme to depend on services, because without services you will not be able to move even the goods. So the growth in this domain has been recently growing a lot, rapidly. We see the advanced countries our advanced state are focusing on the service sector. Let me simplify this. What do we mean by service sector? Hospitality sector, logistics sector, renewable energy sector, telecommunications sector, the talent movement or consultations, the medical services. So before 2 years, we started to evaluate our situation in this growth, in the international and the global growth. We found that we are organically, before we start focusing on this sector, we are the ranked 12th in the service sector. This shows the strength that we have achieved even before we focus. So what about if we start focusing now? We are sure that this will be very well improved, and we are dealing with the service sector, dealing with the national companies and the companies operating in the UAE in a way that facilitates the investment and expansion, and also enhances our soft power. And we see now some of the companies that started to expand overseas. We are happy now to see our countries in the Turkish market, for example, in markets overseas, to see the UAE brands, not only to send goods, but also to have the positive impact on these markets. We know that indirect effects or impact, because we know, of course, there are cheap goods in the UAE, in the local market, but at a good price. This is but with a good quality, and this, of course, will be a good thing. We have also this tension with the traders, particularly those who are importing goods from outside. They need to provide this at low prices, and also to have the impact on the community, positive impact on the community. We are frequently assessing this, like quarterly, make assessment for all of these. I believe that is a source of pride for each Emirati, because their country is liable and credible. And my second question is, in addition to the program of the comprehensive economic agreements, the UAE enhanced its presence at the open trade level, comprehensive open trade levels, multilateral trade, through a number of initiatives that aim to facilitate identification of the trade chains and supply chains. In January 2023, UAE launched an initiative the Trade Technology Initiative in partnership with the International Trade Forum in Davos, which aims to expedite the digitization of the supply chain at the global level. What are the chances and what are the opportunities and challenges in this field? Thank you, Dr. Fayed. We know that
If we're talking about the key factors facing the world countries, these are classified into three aspects. The first one is the geopolitical situation and its impact on globalization and on alliances, whether in international or regional alliances that are being restructured. The second one is the talent and capabilities, and of course we're focusing on this aspect. We can see the restructuring of policies, and there are some strict conditions for immigration of talent. US and Canada have developed significantly thanks to the immigrant talents, and this is an important reason for us to improve and develop the immigration system in the UAE. The third one is the technological aspect. There is an accelerating move to utilize technologies such as AI and robotics, as well as the utilization of technologies in biotechnologies and other fields. The issue with the trade is that it has complex operations, and the number of partners in the trading chain is a large number, including the manufacturer, the importers of raw materials, the labor. These raw materials can be in several countries, and also you need the capabilities to use them. Also, factories require utilities and workforce. There's also the domestic transport, the storage, the movement from airports to the next border point. Sometimes you require maritime shipping until you reach the distribution phase. So the number of partners from the beginning to the end is a large number, and there's a lot of companies who are still using the old paper ways and manual transactions. This causes delays, losing documents, delay in clearance processes, as well as the late delivery to consumers. Right now, we are seeing a new dimension added to that due to the geopolitical conditions in the region, and looking for new alternative routes for shipping, and this impacts the movement of goods. And through our cooperation with the World Economic Forum, we launched an initiative to attract the best practices and to utilize them when we work with other countries. And it's worth mentioning that we are linked to 250 ports around the world, and also connected to more than 400 countries in terms of logistic hubs and cities, either through our presence in these hubs or cooperation with our partners. And this facilitates our movement and our trade. And also we have improved our presence through the Dubai ports and Abu Dhabi ports, which improves the efficiency in these countries. In some cases and countries, we noticed that some shipments stay for 7 or 8 hours at some border points because of the lack of technology or shift changing, and this has a large cost on the transaction. This is on a border line, not in the sea, for example. How would these practices impact countries that are not using technology? There are several experiences that makes it easier to develop a comprehensive infrastructure in these countries, and we're now working on attracting the best practices to adopt and develop them in the UAE, and then start to expand their implementation in these countries and see who are our international partners to develop them. One step would save $4 billion annually, which is the clearance of the shipping documents and the customs documents, and it's just one step of a very long and complicated process of goods movement. It is a complicated process, but now I understand why. There is a question that many people have, especially in the West. What does the UAE want from its involvement in platforms such as BRICS and ASEAN? And some diplomats asked me, why do you join the bad guys? It depends where you are. So are the goals? Of course, we have several experts from various regions around the world here. Are the goals of the UAE investment and trade goals only, or do we have geopolitical goals? And is this involvement in such organizations or platforms capable of achieving the objectives of the UAE plan, such as the UAE Centennial 2071 and the 50 projects and other UAE strategies? The UAE strategy and policy is based on diversification in terms of sectors that have a role and influence on our GDP, and we can see the influence and the low contribution of the oil sector in the GDP, and we are going on with that approach, and this is a key aspect of our ongoing diversification policies. And of course, under the directives of His Highness the President of the UAE, before the World War II, we were well known for the pearl trade. And after developments of the industry in Japan, there was some kind of recession in the country. Right now, we are rewriting history, and we are re-witnessing the same thing with oil, especially in light of the emergence of renewable energy. We're not going to wait for the same issue to happen. Now, our diversification strategy is very important. Of course, we work on improving the oil industry, but we will not rely on one asset. The same applies to our international relations. We continue with our strategic partners. We don't disturb or interrupt these historical relations. However, it's very important to have alternatives and to diversify and have relations with everyone. You mentioned BRICS, and there was a lot of discussion on the IMEC corridor, also the development corridor through Iraq, also the south-north corridor as well. With every initiative and corridor, our partners ask us if we change our minds. We have to tell everyone that we are continuing and that we are interested in all corridors, and we want to be a key player of the success of all initiatives, because this success means the success of all international supply chains and the continuance of international trade. The question is it a geopolitical or an economic purpose when we join BRICS? And we tell you it's a pure economic purpose. 3 years ago in the ministry, we conducted a detailed study of the G7, and right now 25 years from now will be replaced by E7, which is the emerging economies or emerging nations that will be replacing them, which is China, Russia, India, Mexico, South Africa, Turkey, and Brazil. These are the 7 countries whose economies until 2050 will be double the G7 economies. So imagine the influence or the economic and trade influence of these countries 25 years from now. This is why we initiated partnership agreements with these countries, and this is why we are joining BRICS, because it offers great economic opportunities for the twinning and alignment of our policies with these countries in the trade and investment field. Also, these countries are emerging in a great renaissance and improvement of the infrastructure. This poses investment opportunities and transformation opportunities for low-income population to higher income population through the service sector, as we said. We are building for the future. We are linking our investments and relations and economic and trade partnerships from now on, because we know these countries will have more influence on the global scale. So if people read that the UAE said that economy comes first and the foreign policy must serve this goal. Today we had a session about connectivity and about trade corridors and economic corridors. The UAE is involved in the IMEC corridor from India to Europe. From your point of view, the recent developments in the region, such as the Gaza war and Lebanon and the others, led to the suspension of this project. And in your opinion, if we reach a ceasefire, will the project forge ahead or be revived? Or is it already obsolete, especially that the UAE has been involved in another corridor, which is the development corridor through Iraq and Turkey. This project did not stop. It's still ongoing, but looking to the IMEC corridor, we have to look at it. If you look at it as one project, this is not cannot be true, because you cannot have a project of that volume, that scale, and that cost in one stage. So the key phase is going on very well with digital connectivity with India. And now, if someone conducts a clearance transaction in India, it reflects on the system in the UAE. So when we talk about the economic and logistic corridors, we are always involved in them, because this is a complementary process, whether the BRI initiative or the development corridor through Iraq. Some ways you can use it to your interest, whether in the region or in the world. This doesn't mean that we stopped any of these projects. We have this belief in the foreign affairs or in our institutions. Trade, investment, and economy are among the key stability, key factors for stability, political stability, creating jobs and building factories, and also it strengthens the cohesion of communities. What's happening in Gaza and Lebanon is affecting everyone, of course. However, the Abrahamic Accords created communication channels between us and the Israelis in many topics, and this is facilitating the provision of humanitarian aid in Gaza and Lebanon. Imagine if we don't have this communication, which was a key part of our relationship, we wouldn't have this opportunity to accelerate the development agenda and the humanitarian aid through this partnership. This is true, and it explains a lot of the misunderstanding and lack of knowledge around the UAE objectives, whether through the Abrahamic Accords or its involvement in the corridors. I know it's been a lot of questions, but I have one last question, which is always related to what you talk about, integrating artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies in the supply chains. You always say that this requires an organizational framework supported by the international commerce sector. Can you shed some light on this concept, please? One of the key challenges facing the world, and also through the discussions with the WTO discussions and the ministerial conference of the WTO that was hosted in Abu Dhabi in February, we managed to succeed in some strategic decisions. And one of the topics that we can say is progressing is the topic of trans-border data exchange using artificial intelligence and in trade and in business. Countries are still developing their policies against immigration because they are concerned about these policies. But what we are saying is that the private sector is using their own tools and technologies to overcome these challenges and forging ahead with this approach. Of course, artificial intelligence is playing a great role, and we had a simple experiment during the COVID-19. We managed to identify sources of some strategic goods if some borders were closed. I will give you an example of rice. We source it from Pakistan and India and also Vietnam and Thailand. Unexpectedly, it's not just basmati rice, which is used by Emiratis, but mostly it is regular rice, which is not sourced from India and Pakistan. It's sourced from Vietnam and Thailand. After India and Pakistan closed their borders, within 24 hours, we managed to identify their source and the distributor and contact them in order to supply the required types of rice and overcome the issue within 24 hours without anyone noticing. This is using a technology that wasn't present 4 years ago. So the impact of artificial intelligence and technology on trade requires daring decisions. Of course, there will be challenges related to data and privacy and confidentiality. The data is already there with companies, but you have to start learning and implementing these technologies. Otherwise, you will be very late. And the UAE, under the directives of our leadership and the efforts since 2017 until now, we are the third country in terms of AI readiness, and we're only third to China and the US. So this is a very important and vital sector, such as the trade sector. We can utilize AI in different and varying levels with varying partners. And what we need right now is the integration and the clarification of rules, and the governance and the international laws doesn't have to be perfect in order to facilitate things. Things are going on, and as politicians and governments, we have to cope with this speed of development in order to utilize these technologies. So if anyone is wondering about the success of the UAE and the UAE model, His Excellency Dr. ThaniAlZeyoudi is one of these success stories. And he is he's one of the examples of Mohammed bin Zayed's vision for the Emirati power model. I met him in many platforms. We haven't discussed his field of expertise. He's very modest and humble. And asked him, I called him after he came back from Australia to grace this session. But in less than 1 second, he agreed to meet with us here. But in addition to this humanitarian side, I believe that the confidence of our leadership is well placed in Dr. Thani, who is a key player in the UAE's development journey and its success. And I am very proud of my country and of my UAE colleagues. And after this discussion, I believe you all share the same opinion. Thank you very much.